I'm Wraitho, and this first story was sent in by two brothers, Evan and Tyler. They swear nothing in their lives has ever scared them more than what happened during a simple weekend camping trip. The brothers love the outdoors. They grew up hunting, fishing, and hiking. They weren't jumpy city kids. They considered themselves tough. But that summer night changed the way they saw the woods forever. They picked a small clearing near the edge of Pine Ridge Forest. It wasn't an official campsite, just a flat patch of ground someone else had used before. The remains of an old fire pit, boot prints, and a couple broken branches. They set up their tent, cooked dinner, and settled in. Everything was normal until around 1 a.m. when Tyler shook Evan awake. "Dude, someone's outside." Evan listened. At first, he heard nothing. Then, leaves crunching.
I feel like they're being watched.
Deliberate. Like someone walking in circles just outside the tent. Evan whispered, "Probably a deer." Tyler whispered back, "Deer don't walk like that." The footsteps weren't random. They were pacing. One slow lap around the tent, then another, and another. The brothers' breathing synced, shallow, controlled. Neither moved. After about 10 minutes, the footsteps stopped near their backpacks, which they'd left outside by the fire pit. Something or someone was going through them. Zippers, soft rustling, fabric shifting. "That's not an animal," Evan whispered. Then, the thing outside crouched. They could tell by the sudden shift of the shadow cast through the tent fabric. Whoever it was sat perfectly still for almost a minute, facing the tent. Evan slowly reached for the hatchet near his sleeping bag and gripped the handle. Tyler whispered, "Should we yell or run?" "No," Evan said. "If we run, he'll chase." When the pacing began again, the steps were closer. Slower, almost testing their reactions. Finally, the steps stopped right next to Evan's side of the tent. He could feel the ground compress slightly. Someone was kneeling. A soft breath pressed against the nylon wall. Then, fingers. Long, thin fingers pressed slowly against the tent fabric, dragging downward until they reached the base. Evan froze. He could hear Tyler quietly crying. And then, the worst moment of Evan's life. A man whispered from outside the tent, "You boys asleep in there?" Evan felt his heart stop. It wasn't a question meant to be answered. It sounded like someone asking to see if they were vulnerable. Evan didn't speak. Tyler didn't breathe. After a long silence, the man whispered again, softer, "I've been watching you." Evan nearly passed out. Then, suddenly, the man stood up and walked into the tree line. No rush, no panic. Just slow, casual steps fading into the woods. The brothers stayed awake until dawn, gripping their weapons, listening to every sound. At first light, they crawled out of the tent. The man had left something behind. A small leather notebook sat on top of Tyler's backpack. The first page contained a single sentence. "I watch everyone before I choose." The rest of the pages were filled with dates, coordinates, and descriptions of people sleeping in tents. Page after page. The oldest entry was from 1984. Some pages had check marks next to names. Others had X's. They turned the page to the date they had arrived, the date they camped. Next to that entry was a box, but nothing was marked yet. The brothers packed in minutes and sprinted back to their car. They reported the encounter to park rangers and police, but the notebook vanished from the evidence locker 3 days later. No explanation. To this day, neither brother camps again. But sometimes, Tyler says, He wakes up at night thinking about that notebook and wondering whether the box next to their names ever got filled in. This next story was sent in by a woman named Claire. She said she used camping as a way to unwind, her escape from work, noise, and people. But one night in the summer of 2021 made her quit camping forever. She'd chosen a quiet campsite in a national forest, not the kind crowded with RVs and families. This was one of the primitive, isolated spots. No lights, no rangers nearby, no other campers for miles. By sunset, she was alone. She didn't mind. That changed around 12:40 a.m. Claire woke up to a sound that didn't belong in the woods. Whistling. Soft, slow, melodic. At first, she thought maybe she was dreaming, but then it got louder. Whoever was doing it was moving. The whistling drifted between trees, echoing in a pattern, stop and start. The tune wasn't familiar, but something about it felt wrong, almost childish. Claire sat up, heart pounding. She grabbed her flashlight and quietly unzipped her tent just enough to peek out. Darkness, trees, blank shadows. But the whistling continued. Then it stopped. Silence swallowed the campsite. Claire held her breath. Seconds passed. Then, crunch. A footstep. Heavy. Close. Claire ducked back inside. The footsteps circled her campsite, just like the man from the first story. Slow, deliberate, pausing every few seconds. Then something even worse happened. The footsteps stopped right behind her tent, and the whistle started again. This time, inches away from her. Long, slow notes, blown so gently she could feel the vibration through the tent floor. Claire's eyes filled with tears. She didn't know whether to run, scream, or hide. Then the whisper came, a low, calm voice. "I know you're awake."
I know you're awake.
She felt her entire body lock up. The voice continued, cheerful and soft, almost playful. "Do you like my song? Do you like my song?" Claire clamped her hand over her mouth to keep from making a sound. The whistling started again, even quieter, circling the tent. She watched the shadow move across the nylon wall. A tall figure with broad shoulders. Whoever it was carried something long, maybe a walking stick, or something else. She waited, muscles shaking, until the sound faded. Around 3 a.m., she heard a door slam in the distance. A truck, maybe. The whistling stopped immediately. Then fast footsteps sprinted into the woods. Claire stayed awake until sunrise. As soon as the first light touched the trees, she crawled out, grabbed her keys, and bolted for her car. But right before she got in, she caught something out of the corner of her eye. A small object lying next to the fire pit. A carved wooden flute. And scratched into the side of it, "Camp with me again." Claire reported everything to the authorities. They did a sweep and found footprints. Large, booted, heavy.
No, please stop.
Not from a hiker. Not from a ranger. The ranger told Claire something that still chills her. "We've had 2 similar reports this month. Whistling. Watching. Same handmade flute." They'd never found the man. Claire hasn't gone camping since. But every once in a while, late at night, she swears she hears a faint whistle outside her apartment window. She never checks. This last story was sent to me by a man named Victor, who went camping every fall with two close friends, Mark and Daniel.
I'm telling you, this trail's supposed to cut right through to the lake.
You said that an hour ago, Vic. My feet are killing me.
Look, I see the fire up ahead. We're almost there.
They were in their late 20s, experienced outdoorsmen, and knew how to handle themselves. But what happened on their 6th yearly trip was something none of them were prepared for. Their tradition was simple: find a remote spot, pitch 3 tents, build a fire, spend the weekend completely off-grid. The location they chose in 2019 was a wide clearing deep inside Redwood Valley, a place with old trees thick enough to block all moonlight. It took nearly a full day of hiking to reach it. The point was isolation, peace. They set up camp, cooked dinner, and talked around the fire until about midnight. The woods were calm. No wind, no wildlife sounds, just the crackle of firewood. Then, out of nowhere, Daniel stopped talking mid-sentence. "Do you guys hear that?" he whispered.
I'm telling you, I heard it last night too. It sounded massive, like something right outside the...
At first, neither Victor nor Mark heard anything. But after a few seconds, Victor noticed something unusual. The forest sounded wrong. Not silent, suppressed. All natural sounds had been replaced by a faint, rhythmic crunching. Someone walking on the trail. Slow, heavy, getting closer. Mark grabbed his flashlight and aimed it toward the sound. A man stepped into the edge of the clearing. He wasn't a hiker. He wasn't carrying gear. He wore old, mud-caked jeans and an oversized jacket zipped up to his neck. His hair was long and messy. He didn't look dangerous at first, just off. The stranger raised a hand in an awkward wave. "Mind if I sit a while?" he asked with a strange, flat tone. The friends exchanged looks. Something about him didn't feel safe, but they didn't want to escalate things. Victor forced a polite smile. Sure, if you want." The man came closer and sat right down by the fire without waiting to be invited fully. His clothes smelled like old smoke and dirt. For several minutes, no one spoke. The stranger stared into the fire, expression blank, not blinking. He had a small cut on his cheek, dried blood down to his jaw. Finally, Mark asked, "You camping out here too?" The man didn't answer. Instead, he tilted his head slowly, eyes still locked on the flames. Then he said quietly, "You shouldn't be here."
You shouldn't be here.
Victor's stomach dropped. Mark forced a laugh. "Why's that?" The stranger finally turned his head toward them. His smile was wide, unnatural, stretching too long across his face. "Because," he whispered, "I picked this spot first." Daniel swallowed hard. "We didn't see anyone." The man shrugged. "I was watching from the trees. Wanted to see if you'd leave." Victor's throat went dry. "How long were you watching us?" he asked. The man stared directly at him, eyes cold and empty. "Since sunset." The friends exchanged terrified glances. The man continued smiling. Victor stood up. "All right, look, we didn't know this was your site. We'll leave in the morning." The stranger nodded slowly. But then he said, "Morning won't matter." Before any of them could react, the man reached into his jacket. Mark jumped to his feet, ready to defend himself. But instead of a weapon, the man pulled out a small leather pouch. He dropped it onto the ground. It fell open. Inside were 3 items: a rusted key, an old photograph of a random campsite, and a single human tooth. Victor felt sick. Mark whispered, "What the hell is that?" The stranger stood, stretched casually, then said, "I leave these behind, for the ones who don't listen." He gave them one last smile. Then he stepped backward into the shadows, disappearing between the trees without another sound. The friends sat frozen for almost a full minute before Victor finally said, "We're leaving. Now." They packed in absolute silence, adrenaline pushing them through the dark hike back toward the trail they came from. But halfway down the path, Victor noticed something that almost made him collapse. Fresh boot prints in the dirt. The stranger was following them. Not behind them, but ahead. He was walking the trail toward their cars, like he had memorized the route. The friends moved faster, constantly checking shadows. When they reached the trailhead at dawn, something waited for them on the hood of Daniel's car. A fresh leather pouch. Inside this one was a note. "You left before I chose." They never returned to Redwood Valley. And Victor told me the scariest part wasn't what happened that night. It was that 2 months later, a ranger called them with new information. He said hikers found a burnt campsite deep in the woods. 3 tents, 3 backpacks, 3 sleeping bags. And near the fire pit, a man's jacket. Inside one pocket, another leather pouch, filled with 3 teeth this time.